Good evening, and welcome to the organizational meeting of the Solon Board of Education. This is the time of year when we have a special meeting to organize ourselves for the year. Mr. Buchanan, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Thomas.
Here.
Mr. Heckman.
Here.
Mrs. Glavin.
Here.
Mr. Patton.
Here.
Mrs. Moses.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item is the election of President of the Board. The President pro tempore will entertain nominations for the position of Board President, and an election will follow. The Board President is elected to serve a term of 1 year. Are there motions from the floor?
Like to motion Julie Glavin as for president?
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mrs. Thomas. Are there any other motions from the floor? Seeing none, then the motions will be closed. Mr. Buchanan, will you take a vote, please?
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Mr. Patton.
Yes.
Mrs. Moses.
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin.
Yes, thank you. Moving into our second item is the election of Vice President. The President of the Board will entertain nominations for the position of Board Vice President, and an election will follow. The Board Vice President is elected to also serve a term of 1 year. May I have a motion, please?
I'd like to nominate
Go ahead, Meryl.
Leanne for Vice President. Second.
And Mr. Patton will second it. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Seeing none, the nominations are closed, and Mr. Buchanan, if you'll call the roll.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Mr. Patton.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mrs. Moses.
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, both of you.
Both of you.
Yes. All right, moving into item number 6. The next item is our resolution to authorize the withdrawal of funds. Recommended motion to authorize the withdrawal of funds as noted in enclosure 6. Motion, please.
So moved?
Moved by
Second.
Mr. Heckman, second by Mr. Patton. Mr. Buchanan, was there anything that we need to,
No, this is an annual item. and it's
housekeeping item?
Just a annual housekeeping item.
Okay, good, thank you. Any questions? Mr. Buchanan, may I call the roll, please?
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Patton.
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Mrs. Moses.
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin.
Yes. Item number 7, meeting dates. Recommended motion to establish the regular meeting dates of the Solon Board of Education at the Solon Board of Education offices at 6 p.m. as follows. May I have a motion, please?
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Thomas.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Moses. Mr. Buchanan, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Mrs. Moses.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Patton.
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin.
Yes.
We should note that
You
some
might,
of
yes.
those are 8 in the
Yeah,
summer.
I was just going to say that.
I
AM.
remember.
Some of our summer meetings are at 8 a.m., so it's included in that. Item 8, legal services. Recommended motion to authorize the resolution to retain the law firms of Squires, Patton Boggs, Britton, Smith, Peters, Khalil, and Markakis, LPA, Brinza, McIntyre, and Seed, and Walter Haverfield, LLP, to perform legal services in the connection with matters relating to education, including fundamental matters as included in enclosure 8. Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Patton.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Thomas.
Yes, Mrs. Glavin, this is a normal course of business. Again, it's just an operational thing where the board has to approve the law firms that we use on a daily basis. As all of you are very well aware over the course of the past years and several, there's times that we need lawyers for various reasons, and we have a variety of firms that we use to do that.
Very good, thank you. Any questions? Mr. Buchanan.
Mr. Patton.
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mrs. Moses.
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin.
Yes. Item 10, appointment of suspension hearing officer. Recommended motion to appoint Fred Bolden as the hearing officer to represent the Board of Education for any appeal of suspensions. Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Moses,
Second?
second by Mr. Heckman. Any questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Moses.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Oh, I will.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Mr. Patton.
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin.
Yes. We're going to move back to the service fund. Recommended motion to establish a service fund to set aside an account within the general fund to cover expenses incurred by members of the Board of Education actually incurred in the performance of their duties, not to exceed the amounts authorized by the Ohio Revised Code, Section 3315.15. Motion, please.
Move.
Moved by
Second.
Mrs. Thomas, second by Mr. Patton. Mr. McCann, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes. Item 11, appointment of expulsion hearing officer. Recommended motion to approve Cuyahoga County Board of Education as a hearing officer to act as the designee of the Board of Education for hearing expulsions referred to them by the Board of Education during 2021. Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Mr. Heckman, seconded by Mrs. Thomas. Any questions, any comments on that, Mr. Bowman?
No, Mrs. Glavin.
Okay. Mr. McCann, if you call the roll, please.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes. Item 12, signature authorization. Recommended motion to approve a resolution authorizing the superintendent to sign contracts on any agreement with the Education Service Center. Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Mrs. Moses, second by Mr. Patton.
Yes, Mrs. Glavin, this is again another standard thing that we do each year. It enables me to sign off on any contracts that we enter into for them, that we use them for a variety of services.
Good, thank you. Mr. McCann.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes. Item 13, membership in OSBA. Recommended motion to renew the Solon Board of Education's membership in the Ohio School Boards Association for 2021. Motion,
Move.
please. Moved by Mrs. Thomas.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Moses.
Yes, Ms. Glavin, the Ohio School Boards Association is an organization that works for us at the Capitol. They have almost every district in the state is a member of the organization. They're a great program that we
Yeah,
use.
You know, it's our
use them all
resource
the
center
time.
for
Yep.
for different things. That's something that we've always done, so.
Absolutely.
Mr. McCann?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes. Item 14, membership in the Educational Tax Policy Institute. Recommended motion to approve the Solon Board of Education's membership in the Educational Tax Policy Institute for the calendar year 2021 in the amount of $1,500. For many years, Solon schools have been part of the Educational Tax Policy Institute. This is a nonprofit research arm of all educational organizations that provide unbiased research regarding school funding. Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Mr.
Sec-
Heckman, second by Mr.
second.
Patton. Fred, anything on the,
I have nothing to add on this one. Tim?
great. Tim, anything?
This organization was created a few years back. This has been an organizational item that, with the complexity of school funding and how it ties to the state tax structure, this Policy Institute began looking at a more in-depth and involved way to try to tie tax policy with educational policy. And it's it's important, it's very important when you're taking a look at both pieces and trying to combine them together. You can't have one without the other in Ohio.
Right. Well, and I think it's important to realize that, you know, when it's a levy time or something, then obviously that's a point of discussion, but this is something that our treasurer and our district and our superintendent deal with every day of every year. So it's really, this has been a valuable tool for us to be a part of.
It has.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes. Item 15, OSBA Legal Assistance Fund. Recommended motion to approve the Solon Board of Education participating in the Ohio School Board Association Legal Assistant Fund for the 2021 calendar year.
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Thomas.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Moses.
Yes, Ms. Glavin, again, OSBA, the same organization that we approved just a few items ago. This is the Legal Assistance Fund where if there's issues that school boards or things get into, where they're able to provide additional support for us should it be needed.
Right, they don't provide
Legal counsel.
legal
it's-
counsel, but it is a phone call that you can make to see if
Exactly.
something is of a concern, and it's something that we have, you know, all school districts, I think, have used them, and it's a great service that OSBA provides. Have a motion, please? Or, excuse me, call the roll.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes, item 16, Records Commission meeting.
Yes. In the Ohio, based on the Ohio Revised Code, you're required to have one Records Commission meeting a year. This is our meeting. There are no records to present based on the way our district operates. Our district typically, as you know, provides the records retention policy and the records during the months of May, June, July. Around that period, we began exploring what we need to keep, what we need to perhaps destroy, and any items that fit within that records retention policy that must be approved by the Board of Education is presented to the board, usually around the June, July time period.
Okay, good. Item 17, IDEA Part B, public hearing. Under Ohio law, boards of education are now required to hold a public hearing regarding the use of IDEA Part B funds. This hearing satisfies that obligation. Any questions?
Okay.
Oh, and again, IDEA Part B, this is a requirement because we do receive IDEA Part B special education funding. This is a federal fund. However, our school district doesn't receive nearly the amount most school districts receive. When you receive the amount that some school districts receive, there's a lot of different directions and ways you can spend the money, and they have tons of money to spend. Because it's a smaller pot of money we receive, the overwhelming majority is embedded in paying for services to our children, specifically in salaries, and the individuals that help meet those needs directly with our kids. So there's not as much discretionary spending out of this account.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Call the roll, please. Oh, no.
Yeah.
We're doing things out of order here, or I am. Can we have a motion, please?
Or adjournment.
To
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
we did, we.
Right,
we're all good.
that's just,
We're all
there's,
good. I forgot we were
this
talking about
hearing,
that. I'm just,
this is the,
I keep looking down with this mask and seeing
It was
different.
last night's game.
Yeah, I'm telling you, we're all still a little frazzled after last night's game. At this point, I will entertain a motion for an adjournment.
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Thomas.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Jones. Mr. Buchanan?
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Moses,
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Patton.
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin.
Yes. We don't actually, we just call the meeting to order.
That's correct.
I think we can dispense with the flag as well. This is the first opportunity for public comment. In accordance with Board Policy 0169, this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Due to the virtual nature of the following meeting and in accordance with state law, we are foregoing the traditional period of public comment. Should anyone have a public comment, they are entitled, they can leave comments and to email us at info@solonboe.org. Again, that email address to email questions or concerns is info@solonboe.org. Just as a reminder to our audience, board members do receive and review the agenda and the accompanying explanation during the week prior to the Monday meeting. Moving into the treasurer's report, item A1, approval of minutes. Recommended motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of December 14th, 2020.
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Thomas,
Second.
second by Mrs. Moses. Are there any additions or corrections? Seeing none, Mr. Buchanan, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Moses.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Patton.
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin.
Yes. Item A2, approval of bills. Recommended motion to approve the payment of bills totaling $10,355.60 as noted in enclosure A2.
So moved.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Heckman, second by Mr. Patton.
Yes, Ms. Glavin, you'll see there's three relatively small items on the thing. They're related to district security as well as a final payment on the last generator in our district.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Buchanan?
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Patton.
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Mrs. Moses.
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin.
Yes. That concludes the treasurer's report. Moving into the superintendent's report. Item B1, public hearing and consideration of reemployment OPSI. Recommended motion to rehire retired employee Kim Pennington for a 1 year as noted in the collective bargaining agreement between the Solon Board of Education and the Ohio Association of Public School Employees in compliance with Ohio Revised Code 3307.353. Members of the public are invited to provide input to the board on the issue of reemployment on the above employee. After input, the board will act on this resolution. May I have a motion, please? Moved by Mrs. Moses, second by Mrs. Thomas.
Yes, Mrs. Glavin, Mrs. Pennington is following a provision that we have in our contract that allows for our employees, if it's prior to the 30th year of employment, for them to retire and then be rehired for one more year. It's a cost savings measure to the district where they will shift off to, they will shift into the state retirement system and using the state retirement benefits as well, and then we will pay their last most expensive year of their salary for only 1 year, as opposed to them staying for longer than that. And it's a real cost savings to the district, and Ms. Pennington has taken this opportunity.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mr. McKenna?
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes. Item B2, head football coach. Recommended motion to appoint Brian Wisniewski as the head football coach for the 2021-22 school year. I have a motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Heckman, seconded by Mrs. Moses.
Yes, Ms. Glavin, we had, it was quite a lengthy experience for me, my first head football coaching hiring experience. And we interviewed a lot of candidates. We went through a lot of different people. And after that was all said and done and we went through it, we felt that Brian was going to bring a real fresh perspective. He had a lot of really exciting ideas for what he could bring to the program and what we can do. We really liked his energy. We really like what he's going to do. He's got some really good ideas to reinvigorate our youth programs, to really help bring Solon football. People say, "Oh, Solon football back." We're a perennial 8+ win season team, but we always want to go to that next level, and we think Brian's going to really help us get there.
Great, now Brian's been involved in the district as a...
He has. This is his 10th year as a coach in the district.
Great.
So, but it's really interesting because he understands where we are, but he sees a real clear path for how he wants to do things differently and how he wants to bring the district to do things differently, both on the field and off the field. It's really really excited to see what he brings.
Great, thank you.
Great.
Perfect.
Great, any questions or concerns? Mr. McKenna?
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes. Item B3, COVID-19 substitutes. Recommended motion to approve the following individuals as COVID-19 building substitutes for the remainder of the 2020-21 school year. Motion,
Move.
please.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Patton,
Second.
second by Mrs. Thomas.
Yes, Mrs. Glavin, these are additional substitutes that are work in the buildings every single day. We use them as on-call substitutes to help us fill in. We lost a couple over the course of break, so we're adding a couple additional ones on. It's basically to help us with the staffing issues that we have been suffering from over the course of this year due to COVID. They've been very helpful and enabled us to stay open when we otherwise wouldn't be able to.
Good, thank you. I'm glad we still have those people available that we can utilize their talents. Any other questions? Mr. McKenna?
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes. Item B4, substitutes. Recommended motion to approve the following individuals as substitutes on an as-needed basis for the 2020-21 school year. Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Heckman, seconded by Ms. Jones. Ms. Moses.
Yes, Ms. Glavin, these are our regular substitutes that just fill on an as-needed basis, and we need lots of them as well as regular COVID subs as well. We still don't have enough. We still need more. If you have a college degree and you fill out the appropriate paperwork and pass the background checks, we can use you. We need your help right now, and if anybody's interested in doing it, just contact the district or go onto our website to get the application materials. Well, it depends on if you're certified or not.
Okay.
If you already have your substitute license, it just requires a board approval for the action of having a substitute. If you don't have that one, it can take up to a couple of weeks. Things are a little more delayed down at the Ohio Department of Education because they're doing everything remotely. So it could take up to a couple of weeks.
Okay, great, thank you.
But everything is done online, correct?
Everything is online, absolutely.
Any questions? Mr. Buchanan?
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes. Item B5, tuition reimbursements. Recommended motion to approve tuition reimbursements to the following individuals. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Patton, seconded by Mrs. Thomas.
Mrs. Glavin, these were previously approved, and they do meet our JESTA criteria.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Buchanan?
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes. That concludes our business items. Moving into information items and other reports to the board. Item C1, Mr. Bolden.
Yes, school board member recognition. Every year in January, the Ohio School Boards Association recognizes members of the boards of education for their service to public schools. I'm going to read off script here for a second. The 5 of you are an incredible board. Obviously, I'm a little biased. You hired me, but I can tell you.
Good thinking.
Right, exactly. You are a fabulous board who really have the needs of the kids. This is not a job filled with lots of thanks and accolades. Being a board member is not a job that you do because you get a lot of pats on the back. Mostly people just call or email or write or post on social media how much they don't like the things that you are doing or how you're doing them. I just want to say that based on my experience, it's an honor to have you guys as our board. You do a spectacular job, and you really help. You let us do the job that we need to do to service the kids, and I just couldn't be happier and thankful to have all of you as the Board of Education for the Solon City School District.
Well, great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They had, it's always kind of interesting because, as a board member, one of the hallmarks of Solon is that we do work as a partnership, not just with the board and the superintendent, but with every part of our school environment. And one of the things that I know I can speak on behalf of the board is that we all feel is that, we always want to do our part to provide that partnership and to be consensus builders and not be, in the mix, and not that we're not in the mix, but I mean, it's our job to help everyone come to consensus to be able to have a program that we're all involved with, and that it's a partnership with our community, with our teachers, with our students. And I know that's important to each board member that's here too, so thank you, Fred. Item C2, 2021-22 school calendar.
Yes, there's a copy of the school calendar will be posted on the district website to go through it. You've obviously gotten a copy of it. It's important to note that this calendar represents, if we go back to school in the fall, business as usual, or close to business as usual, this would be the calendar that we would be operating under. Should we have to go into a full blended model, or if things aren't to a point where we'll have to do a remote session or doing things like that, we'll take another board action to amend that calendar to have it adjusted. This calendar is virtually identical to the calendar that we had at the beginning of last year for this year that obviously had to change. School will be starting for kids on August 18th, and our last day of school for students will be on June 2nd.
I, for one, hope we keep this one.
I want this calendar
Yes.
more than anything.
Yeah, we really, really want this calendar. Yeah. Great, thank you. Item C3, COVID update on current conditions and looking ahead. Mr. Bolden?
Okay, well, we are back. First day back in person was today. We spent a week virtually, and we had, as we expected from the holidays, we had many cases of COVID last week that fortunately we were virtual, so those didn't have an impact on quarantines or causing us to have to shut down more classes to go through that. But I will tell you that this is going to be a battle. We have some time. It's going to be quite some time before the vaccines actually get to our staff members to help us with that. And so it's so important now more than ever that we maintain good hygiene, our distancing, and our masking so that we can keep our teachers healthy. If it comes down to it, we may have to close a building or classrooms or things like that based on our staffing needs. Right now, staffing is at a point where we can be open and we can be open safely. Should that change, obviously, we will communicate to the community to let them know, and we will send that information out to all of us so that we can make that change and say, as an example, we would close one of our buildings for a week to allow for that disease to take its course and to get our staffing levels back up to where we could bring people back. We'll make sure we'll give our community as much advance notice as we can if that's something that has to happen. But as it stands now, it's our intention to try to be open and to stay open through the remainder of the year, as long as we're able to staff it, we're able to do it safely.
And if everyone were to be able to be in a position to get vaccines and get to a point where we're in far better stead than we are right now, then there could be other decisions made to be able to.
There absolutely is. One of the big questions, I'm glad you reminded me of it.
So I know people are concerned that if something were to change, that we don't have the flexibility to be able to go back to.
If there's one thing that I think we've been pretty clear on this year, is that this is always a flexible and fluid situation. We say it almost every meeting that I have. I always talk about how this is such a flexible and fluid situation. And what I've been saying to families as they call and in our communications, should conditions warrant it, we would allow like additional families to come to have students come back to school if they go through it. I know we're having our families make a semester-long commitment right now, but that's because we really can't see what March is going to bring or what April is going to bring yet. And so we're planning for it as though we're going to have to be in this for the rest of that time. Should the vaccines and the trends of cases go down enough to allow us to bring additional families or additional students back into the schools, we'll absolutely open those things back up for our kids to go back in.
Okay, good.
So, but right now, our main goal right now is to get kids in school safely and learning in person and virtually simultaneously, and to keep that going for right now. We have a high case, there's a very large case count right now. People don't, we're kind of COVID fatigued, I think is the word that they're saying, and people don't think about it, but there's a lot of cases. There's a lot of cases out there. Hospitals are filling up, and what we need to do right now is keep the schools safe, keep the kids safe in them, and keep our staff available so that we can continue to have school.
Great.
Is the quarantining still 14 days?
Well, right now, quarantining without symptoms is 10 days.
Okay.
It can be reduced to 7 days if you get a negative test after day 5. If you do not get a test, it is 10 days. And if you are in a situation where you're like an athlete, if you're in a situation where you can't be masked or going through those things, it would be the normal 14.
I think the most important thing that you've done is the communications to the public. I mean, this is what I hear all the time. They know what's going on. They appreciate the letters. They're aware of, the problems that we're going through. They appreciate trying to keep the schools open.
Right.
So, really pleased.
Yeah. To go back to the quarantines that you mentioned, we know that the governor announced some new quarantine protocols that are in an effort to keep more kids in school. In our conversations with the Cuyahoga County Board of Health last week, as well as with state officials, there was some confusion about those things, where what students have to quarantine and how they don't. We decided that we were going to take a more conservative approach, maintain our existing quarantine protocols that we had prior to the beginning of the school year, or prior to the winter break. We decided to maintain those existing protocols so that we could take this week to get a better handle on what the implications are for these altered protocols, because the last thing that we want to do is change the protocols and then we end up getting more people sick and then we have to close things down. So we're just taking a more conservative approach to that, and we will evaluate that after we've had a chance to talk to the Board of Health a little more this week.
Good, thank you.
Did you have a question, Mrs. Moses? I'm sorry.
No, I was going to ask you about the governor's new announcement that he made about the quarantining. I wanted to see how you were addressing that.
Great. Anything else, Mr. Bolden?
No, Mrs. Glavin.
Mrs. Siegel?
No, Mrs. Glavin.
Mr. McCanna?
No, thank you, Mrs. Clown.
Mrs. Moses?
Not today, thanks.
Good. Mr. Patton?
No, thank you. Congratulations.
Anybody?
Nothing
Go
at this
Browns.
time.
Yeah, go Browns. That was, that was
Go Ohio State.
yeah, that was a big, Ohio State tonight.
Yeah.
Anything, Mr. Heckman?
Not at this moment.
All right, just real quickly, I did attend a PTA council Zoom meeting the other day, always kind of interesting. Everyone's really gotten quite adept at meeting this way and doing it. I think many of them are better at it than I am, but it was fine. I did want to mention one of the topics that we discussed at length in the meeting was that, there's been a lot of downsides to the COVID situation, and one thing that unfortunately has happened is that, the PTA scholarships that have been part of this, really the fabric of Solon. I mean, we have been doing budget bin and PTA scholarships for Solon High School seniors since literally the early 1950s. So that, this is a rich tradition in Solon. And we're really at risk this year of having a very, very different landscape when it comes to the PTA scholarships, because they weren't able at all to have budget bin in the fall, which that is their big fundraiser for the amount of money that they need. It's going to be a drastically different scenario. But one of the things we talked about was maybe reaching out to the community and reaching out to people who, I personally know, and, Leanne, you probably do too. We've been working at, in Maryland, at budget bin, everyone for ages. And there might be people out in the community that would like to contribute, that are in a position,
That's a good idea.
Financially, that they would like to make a donation to the scholarship, so that this year's senior class can still be, on the same par with those other years that have gotten the PTA scholarships. So, Tammy, are we going to be able to get that website out there, or is it out there now?
Yes, they're working on that now, and they're having a meeting this week also.
Oh, good. So then, we'll be able to get that information out. We talked about reaching out to the community as well. Maybe doing a newspaper article, something that could attract people that are no longer in the district, but have really fond memories. I honestly, I've been working at Budget Bin for over 30 years, and it's, you run into a lot of people along the way, and they may be interested in participating, and that would be a nice revenue stream if that could happen. So it was, and again, when I met with all the people that are in PTA council, I think, as a board, we certainly do appreciate everything that PTA does for the Solon schools. They're all feeling, rather upset that they can't do the things they normally would do, and they can't have the fundraiser that they normally would have, and they're working really hard to provide special, fun opportunities for kids and parents during this time. But it was nice to hear, what all they're doing. So I know that we all appreciate that. If this is I have nothing else, but if this is another opportunity for public comment.
We
Dan?
do have one public comment that
Do?
just
Okay.
came in. This is from Medora Barnes, and her question is there any update on the status of the hire of the new boys head lacrosse coach? We have a candidate that we are vetting now, and it is our hope that candidate will be on won't it be on the January 25th agenda? I believe it'll be on the January 25th agenda for the new boys lacrosse head coach.
Great.
That'll be 2 weeks.
So 2 weeks, Ms. Barnes, it will be on in 2 weeks.
Great.
Very good. Thank you. Nothing else on public comment? Tammy, anything else? Nope, that's it. Fred?
Nope.
At this point, I will entertain a motion for an adjournment.
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Thomas,
Second.
second by Mrs. Moses. Mr. McCann, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Penn?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.